Prague off the beaten track. Vít Pohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.
Hello, you are listening to Prague off the beaten track. I'm Vít Pohanka, and today we are starting in a place that many Prague residents know well, and yet often, I think, don't really think about. If you live in this city long enough, you start taking Stromovka a bit for granted. It's big, it's green, and it always seems to be somewhere nearby, even if you don't come here that often. But once you step inside, you immediately understand why the old name Královská Obora, the Royal Game Reserve, still fits so well. This isn't just another park. It's nearly 90 hectares of meadows, shady groves, long alleys and ponds, fed by an underground tunnel carved here more than 400 years ago. What many people forget is that Stromovka wasn't always a quiet place for runners and families as it is today. For most of its life, it was a carefully protected piece of royal property. Medieval kings hunted here, Renaissance architects reshaped it, and Emperor Rudolf II left one of the most important marks when he had the Rudolf Tunnel built to supply all the fish ponds. Over centuries, the landscape kept changing. New ponds were dug, exotic trees were planted, and floods regularly forced Prague to restore and replant large parts of the park. What you see today, and what I can see around me, is a mixture of all these layers, a kind of natural and man-made, peaceful and dramatic landscape, all together at the same time. And that layered history is exactly what you feel when you walk here now. Stromovka is still a place where people, I think, come to run, cycle, walk their dogs, or just lie in the grass in summer with a book. Families arrive with picnic blankets, kids chase each other between trees, and even in winter, when I'm here now, you meet people strolling around the quiet paths and frozen ponds. It's close to the center, less than 15 minutes by tram, but it feels like a world of its own. So, for today's walk, I'm actually not starting directly inside Stromovka. I get off the tram at a place most Praguers know simply as Výstaviště, the exhibition grounds. For many people, this is the main gateway into the park. You pass through the big entrance gate with the fountain and with the view of the glass and the iron industrial palace rising above you, ahead of you and above you if you come closer, and only then a little further on the path opens into the green of Stromovka. It's a very Prague combination. By the way, the story of Výstaviště, or the exhibition grounds, is deeply tied to this place, to Stromovka, I mean. This whole complex was carved out of the eastern edge of the old Royal Game Reserve back in 1891. For the Jubilee exhibition was meant to show the economic and cultural strength of the Czech lands. The industrial palace, Křižík's famous illuminated fountain and many temporary pavilions stood here as showcases of modern industry and technology. Later, in the communist times, the area was renamed the Park of Culture and Leisure of Julius Fučík, and it became a stage for party congresses, giant concerts, trade fairs, and of course the legendary fun fair Matějská pouť. Today, at least in my opinion, Výstaviště is still interesting. Changing again, by the way, it's undergoing a reconstruction. Many of the old buildings are being renovated, new playgrounds, sport areas and cafes have appeared in the surrounding areas, and the whole lower part of Výstaviště and of the palace have been visually opened and reconnected, I would say, with Stromovka. So, it's a mix of renovated pavilions, playgrounds, sports areas and cafes, a lively, slightly I would say chaotic, especially at the weekend, chaotic gateway that slowly opens into the calm of Stromovka. Once you pass through the broad avenue and leave behind the glass of the industrial palace, the noise of the city kind of fades and a line of trees leads you straight into the largest and most beloved, I think, most beloved park in Prague. It's a transition, I think, from steel and stone into grass and water, and the perfect place to start exploring the Royal Game Reserve, which we know now as Stromovka. So, as I leave Výstaviště behind and step fully into Stromovka, the mood changes immediately. It's late autumn afternoon, one of those short weekdays when the light fades earlier than you would expect. The colors are darker, the air a bit damp, and the trees look almost skeletal without leaves. At first glance, it might seem a little depressing, but it isn't, at least not for me. There is a strange, quiet beauty in this kind of weather. The paths are emptier, the leaves underfoot are soft and wet, and the whole park feels like it's exhaling after a long, busy summer. For me, at least, this is the moment when Stromovka shows its real character. The ponds reflect the grey sky, but somehow make it look softer. Ducks move slowly across the water, circles spreading behind them, and perhaps you can hear the rustle of leaves, the click of dog's leash, or a runner's footsteps passing just once and disappearing again. The stillness is not empty. There's a quiet, almost, I would say, melancholic poetry in it. The kind that makes you slow down without even noticing. In weather like this, Stromovka feels less like a city park and more like a landscape painting that you've accidentally walked into. What also shapes the atmosphere here is how close you are to the Vltava river. It forms the park's western edge. It's separated only by the railway line and a strip of trees and a canal that was built, I think, in the 19th century. And in autumn, there is something comforting about knowing that the river is right here, steady, flowing, I think carrying its own stories through Prague. And because Stromovka lies in the flat river plain, the whole space feels open, broad, I would say almost horizontal. Just across the water, though, everything rises sharply, as I can see on the other side of the river. When I turn my back to the river and I look at Letná, Prague 7, I see that high above this plain and the park, perched on a slope that climbs up to the plateau, are many chinčáky. So you can almost feel the difference. Over there are cafes, trams, football pitches, city life buzzing on top of the hill. A very busy part of Prague. And down here there is stillness, ponds, silhouettes of trees. And I think that contrast gives Stromovka a particular kind of magic. You are in the heart of the city, yet the world seems distant. And walking here, especially on a dark autumn afternoon, like I'm doing right now, it feels like visiting a borderland between Prague's everyday pulse and the quieter, older rhythm that the city rarely shows anymore. So, people sometimes ask where the name Stromovka actually comes from. In Czech, strom means tree, so Stromovka is literally the place of trees, a kind of a tree park. And once you walk through it, I think that the name makes perfect sense. That is not just a park with a few decorative species planted along the paths. It's a genuinely rich arboretum, a living collection of local and exotic trees that have been growing here for centuries. Some were planted deliberately during the great landscaping projects of the 19th century. Others came later, after floods or renovations, and a few old giants remembered the time when this was still a royal hunting ground. Everywhere you go, the trees shape the space, the light, even the sound of the park. And let me just add that what many visitors don't realize is that Stromovka has a surprising amount of botanical diversity. If you follow the educational trail that winds through the park, you can discover 96 different species of trees and shrubs. Everything from native oaks and lindens to imported beeches, ashes, and even some quite exotic specimens planted during the Habsburg period. Each one is marked, described, and easy to find if you take your time. It's a quiet way of walking. If you slow down, look up the branches, compare the shapes of the leaves, maybe even learn to recognize a new species, you will learn something new. For me, in a city as big as Prague, the idea that you can take a gentle stroll and meet almost 100 kinds of trees within one park feels almost unbelievable. But it's exactly what Stromovka offers. And that, at least for me, is really the charm of Stromovka. No matter the season or the weather, it's simply a pleasant place to be. You can come here for half an hour or half a day, walk slowly around the ponds, sit on a bench under one of the big old oaks, or just follow the winding paths without any plan. The park never makes demands on you. It lets you go at your own pace, even on a weekday afternoon when the sky is low and the colors are muted. There's really something comforting in the openness of the meadows and the steady presence of the trees. And maybe that's why so many Prague residents keep returning here. Stromovka definitely offers a kind of quiet that you don't always find in the center of even some of other neighborhoods. It's not silence. You still hear dogs, footsteps, the distant hum of trams, sometimes in some places. But it's softer, gentler soundtrack. And I think it's a kind of reminder that you can step out of the city's constant movement without actually leaving the place at all. So if you ever need a moment to breathe, to clear your head, or to simply look at the world at a slower tempo, this is one of the best places in Prague to do it. Thank you very much for listening to Prague Off the Beaten Track. As always, you can find some photographs, practical information and a few extra notes on Prague Off the Beaten Track page at Radio Prague International.
Prague Off the Beaten Track. Výpohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.